activity. You are running to be the Prime Minister of Canada, and therefore you have to have a Made in Canada policy. And here's the thing about Canada. We produce somewhere around 1.5%, give or take, of the world's quote-unquote greenhouse gases. So here's the ugly truth that nobody's saying, and that is, insofar as Canadians are concerned, insofar as Canada is concerned, we could eliminate all production of greenhouse gases, and we're not proposing, nobody's proposing to do that, but we could have zero, not this false, phony
carbon
net
neutral?
Zero,
yeah.
Whatever people, okay, real zero. We don't produce any carbon dioxide. We don't produce any quote-unquote greenhouse gases. It's not going to have the slightest impact on global warming, even if you believe that global warming is 100% caused by human activity. So what is the only sensible, responsible thing for conservatives to, or for Canadians to do? That's to say, whatever's causing global warming, and whatever the speed of it is, and whatever the intensity of it is, it's beyond our control. We're not going to stop it. And so, therefore, we should be preparing for it and learning how to adapt to these changes in weather patterns to the degree that they really do exist. That would be a Made in Canada policy that addresses the needs of Canadians. And then some of the money that you might be saving in doing that, and by that I mean strengthening your infrastructure, doing things to ensure that extreme weather doesn't knock down hydro lines in Toronto for 2 weeks, for instance. There are a lot of things to do. But whatever money you save, okay, let's also remember, there are thousands of Canadians from coast to coast, mostly in First Nations and Aboriginal and Inuit communities, who still do not have access to clean drinking water.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
That is a crime in a country as rich as Canada. And we're sending Canadian tax money overseas to help other countries adjust to climate change, and we're not addressing in any meaningful way those things. And that's a real emergency. When you can't have clean drinking water, Nick, that's a real emergency. So Aaron O'Toole stands up there, and he doesn't have to look like a fool and say, we don't have a policy on the environment. We don't have a policy on climate change. No, of course not. Nobody's suggesting that. What we're saying is have a sensible policy that addresses the needs and the desires of Canadians, all right? And stop playing this virtue signaling. Stop trying to catch up with Justin Trudeau in the virtue signal game.
Because that's a game for fools.
And he's an expert at it.
Yes.
Justin Trudeau is an expert at virtue signaling. Aaron O'Toole is not.
Let's hope he never becomes one, because I totally agree with you. He could have stood on that stage and said, look, global warming, as it is presented to us, we don't deny it's happening. Okay, that's fine, but it's always happened.
Sorry, I'm going to I just interrupt you to clarify on a point, Nick. I will argue the point that global warming is actually happening. Climate change, I agree with. Global warming today,
okay, I'm using the terms interchangeably,
right?
Because that's what they started out calling it.
Right. True.
Anyway, the point is that whatever this thing is, we don't deny that there is some evidence to suggest that it's going on right now. We do deny the massive role we are being portrayed as playing in it. And we think that providing First Nations reserves and other places in the country that don't have clean water is more important than spending money trying to solve a problem that A, we probably are not contributing to, and B, can't fix even if we are.
Well,
we're not going to send any money overseas. We're going to take it and we're going to put it into the infrastructure projects we're talking about. We want clean land, clean water, clean air.
Sure.
And that's our policy.
And keep it simple. And that's
exactly. You don't need to get any more complicated than that.
Absolutely.
And people will flock to that idea.
Well, whether they will or they won't, okay, I think that it's much more sellable okay, than
the nonsense we're hearing now.
The nonsense we're getting now. And here's the thing. This is the other thing. I was looking at some of the stuff that was coming, some of the commentary, and one of the things that when O'Toole was questioned about the fact that the convention had defeated the motion with respect to climate change and climate change policy, Aaron O'Toole was quoted. This is a quote by him. We've now fought and lost 2 elections against a carbon tax because voters
didn't.
Well, hang on a second. Because voters didn't think that we were serious about addressing climate change. I will not allow 338 candidates to defend against the lie from the Liberals that we are a party of climate change deniers. That's a quote from Aaron O'Toole himself, okay? Now, Mr. O'Toole makes a couple of very important and fundamental mistakes in this. First of all, he asserts wrongly that those Canadians who voted against our party, the Conservative Party, in the last 2 general elections did so because the party is perceived to be climate change deniers, quote unquote. I mean, notwithstanding the media's obsession with the subject, I personally am not aware of any data that actually supports that assertion. But he goes on to commit the cardinal sin of politics in that he appears to accept the premises on which he claims the Liberals have successfully branded our party climate change deniers. That is to say that those who oppose a carbon tax or an onerous regulatory regime aimed at achieving a so-called net zero emissions by 2050 deny that climate change or that the climate is changing. And in communication circles, that's actually regarded as almost a firing offense. Nobody in the leader's office, in O'Toole's office, seems to have actually figured that was a problem. I mean, you don't use the language of your opponents in your communication strategy, and then say, "Well, we have to change this because the Liberals are not playing nice. They're calling us names." So I'm thinking, since when do we take advice from our political opponents on the best way to get elected? Since when do we assume that our opponents, who are telling us what we're doing wrong, okay, are actually interested in helping us get elected?
Why do I hear Napoleon in the background?
It is so nonsensical. I mean, at some point in time, I just run out of things to say about it.
Well, the thing that bothers me about all this is I'm tired of a Conservative Party that's running around in blue suits and red shirt and red jackets. I'm just sick of it. Like, if you're going to claim the title Conservative, then be one. Give people something different. The reason why people didn't vote for the Conservatives the last time around is because they were pretty much carbon copies of the Liberals, and better the devil you know than the devil you don't, so they voted Liberal. That's why. And it's really very simple. And what makes me furious is these brain trust people that Mr. O'Toole and the previous leadership had around them were all telling him, "Oh, we got to move to the center." The hell we do. Let the Greens and the NDP and the Liberals fight over the center. We'll take the right, because there's millions of people out there who don't feel like they have a voice and won't vote because nobody's speaking up for them. And until and unless we get back to that, you're going to lose over and over and over again, because you cannot out-liberal the Liberals.
Well, the funny thing is, you see, I think you're giving them too much credit. I don't think that they're trying to out-liberal the Liberals. I think the problem is that they when they get out on the hustings, essentially what they're saying is, we're not Liberals. We're not the Liberals. We are opposed to what the Liberals are doing.
And then they do the same thing.
Well, or they just leave people hanging.
Or so don't have here's what we are.
We're not climate change deniers. We're not the Liberals. We're not climate change deniers. We have a serious plan that's going to do what? It's going to get us to net zero by 2050 or whatever.
Yeah, we'll inflict the pain over a longer time.
Exactly the same thing the Liberals are going to do, but rather than going down this highway, we're going to go down this highway, but we're going to end up at the same place. And I just think that's completely ridiculous, particularly because you fail to explain in any cogent manner how going down this road as opposed to this road is going to be more effective. But on that one point, Nick, you are absolutely right. In the end, even if the methodology is different, the ultimate policy is the same. So how are you differentiating yourself from the Liberals? It's a serious problem. But what you cannot do is you cannot go up on a stage, virtual or not, okay, and say, we're serious about this topic, and not be prepared to talk about in a meaningful way exactly what it is that's making you serious about this topic. What are you doing seriously, quote unquote? As I said, I think, and many other people around me that I'm associating with in one way or another, Nick, we all agree, and we've done study groups on this. We've done focus groups on this. People are prepared to listen to an alternative to a harsh regulatory regime or carbon taxes. Okay? They want the alternative to those two things. And the alternative to those two options is to say, you know what, climate change, real, not real, emergency, not emergency. We're in Canada. Here's the good news, Nick. We live in the second largest country in the world with a fairly sparse population, and we live in, on average, to the degree that you can actually measure average temperature, we actually live in the coldest country in the world. Okay? That's the fact that we only contribute, given the vast distances that people have to travel, even on a day-to-day basis for their work. Given the fact that they have to heat their homes, okay, given all of those facts, that we only contribute somewhere around 1.5% to the total of greenhouse gas production in this on an annual basis, that's amazing. That's a good news story.
Yes.
That's something to give Canadians a pat on the back and say, stop talking about how Canadians don't care or they have to do more. We're doing our fair share, and we're doing a damn good job of it, thank you very much. All things taken into consideration, Canadians are very environmentally conscious. They don't need anybody telling them now, we're going to save the planet by having a carbon tax. It's not going to happen, guys. We just do not produce enough of these gases. Again, assuming you buy into the theory.
That's right. And the other thing they can't do is what the provincial Conservatives did by sticking gas tax stickers on every gas pump to remind them of the evils of their predecessors. Look, people, they know about. Look, you don't need to tell people about the GST. You know, there's an undercurrent of anger towards that still simmers just below the surface. It's not going to be a game changer, but people know it's there. You don't need to tell them about it. You don't need to, there's certain things people don't need to be reminded of. They already are fully aware of. So come out with a little creativity, lay out a decent plan that covers the base. Like, if I was Erin O'Toole, and I'm not, if I was the leader of the party, and I'm not, my campaign slogan would be getting back to basics and keep it simple. And we're going to just have a 3 or 4 point environmental policy, a 3 or 4 point, just a very bare bones basic policy that controls spending, looks after our national interests in areas like immigration and defense and foreign relations, and for the most part, to the best of our ability, start rolling back regulations that impede people in their ability to earn a living and get out of their way. And that would be the message. We're going to do our best to get out of as much as possible. We're going to get out of your way. We'll take care of the big stuff that the average person can't do. Right? The average person cannot defend the country. You need a government for that. The average person cannot look after immigration or aids to navigation through the Northwest Passage. There's different things the federal government has a role to play. But outside of that, we're going to try to leave the responsibilities at the lowest possible level.
Okay, and Nick's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and we're going.
That's because
it's
time.
the bottom of the hour, and we did not discuss in advance who is going to say, thanks for joining us.
And we'll be right back after this.